Kính bạch Thầy, kính thưa toàn thể đại chúng. Sáng hôm nay mình sẽ thực tập ngồi thiền trước khi mình bắt đầu lễ hàng tuần. Mời đại chúng mình chọn cho mình một tư thế ngồi, mình ngồi cho dễ chịu. Giữ lưng vừa thẳng, thả lỏng hai vai. Hai bàn tay có thể chồng chân nhau và để trong lòng chân, hoặc để trên hai đầu gối. Mắt của mình có thể nhắm mắt lại. Miệng khép lại và mỉm cười nhẹ và buông thư toàn thân. Dear respected Thai, dear noble community, this morning we'll be practicing sitting meditation before we start our Sunday service. So we invite you to find yourself a comfortable posture. Make sure your back is upright, your shoulders relax. Your hands can be placed on your lap or on your knees. You may like to close your eyes or open halfway, looking at the tip of your nose or at the ground. Keep a light smile on your face and relax your whole body. Sau khi chúng ta chỉnh tư thế xong, bây giờ mình chú tâm về hơi thở. Để ý những hơi thở ra vào. Khi mình thở vào, mình nhận biết đây là hơi thở vào. Khi mình thở ra, mình nhận biết đây là hơi thở ra. Mình thở tự nhiên mà mình không cần dồn ép hơi thở. Once you establish your posture, you can then bring our attention to our breathing. Become aware of your in-breath as you breathe in, and become aware of your out-breath as you breathe out. Breathe naturally. There's no need to force or control your breathing. Mình ngồi như thế nào? Mình có sự bình an, tĩnh lặng. Và những suy nghĩ xen vào, mình không cần theo nó. Mình buông ra, mình trở lại với hơi thở. Mình không cần suy nghĩ về quá khứ hoặc lo về tương lai. Mình trở lại bản chính mình. Trở lại trong giây phút hiện tại để mình chăm sóc thân tâm của mình. Sit in such a way that there is peace, stillness. And whatever thoughts that may arise, we don't have to follow them. Let them go. Come back to your breathing. We don't need to think about the past or worry about the future. Come back to yourself. Come back to the present moment so that you take care of both your body and your mind. Mình sẽ bắt đầu buổi ngồi thiền bằng 3 tiếng chuông, và sau đó con sẽ hướng dẫn đại chúng ngồi thiền. We'll begin the session with 3 sounds of the bell with a guided meditation. Thở vào, tôi biết tôi đang thở vào. Thở ra, tôi biết tôi đang thở ra. Vào, ra. Breathing in, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I'm aware that I'm breathing out. In, out. Thở vào, ý thức toàn thân. Thở ra, buông thư toàn thân. Ý thức, buông thư. Breathing in, I become aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I relax my whole body. Aware of my body, relaxing my body. vào tâm tĩnh lặng, thở ra miệng mỉm cười. Tĩnh lặng, mỉm cười. Breathing in, my mind is calm. Breathing out, I smile. Calm, smiling. Thở vào, an trú trong giây phút hiện tại. Thở ra, giây phút đẹp tuyệt vời. Hiện tại, tuyệt vời. Dwelling in the present moment, I breathe in. Breathing out, I know that this is a wonderful moment. Present moment, wonderful moment. Please take some time to release and massage your legs. Và xin nhắc nhở đại chúng, vị nào có cell phone, xin nhớ tắt cell phone để mình giữ buổi lễ thanh tịnh và trang nghiêm. A reminder for those who have a cell phone, please make sure you turn off your cell phone so that we keep the atmosphere of the ceremony serene. Thank you.
Please turn to page 0. Cầm hương đôn sao nhà mười phương, nguyện nguyện kính đơn em từ vô lượng, cầu cầu xin chúng thánh thần chúng con vầng khói kết nay lành cúng dường, đạo niệm mau đã lan truyền nơi cùng nơi, nhai chân lý chúng sanh đều thoát luân hồi, đồng quý khen quỳ dưới đại sen, dân hóa tâm tinh kia màu thắm tươi cành, đại quang minh sáng huy hoàng trang nghiêm, hơn mười phương điều nở hào quang an lành, nhiên đạo quyết chuyên soi khắp cùng quần sanh, phần đạo đồng cùng nhau tu tinh tâm vào viên thành. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Xin cho khối trọng thông kết thành nay năm sắc dâng lên khắp mười phương, cúng dường vô lượng bổn vô lượng chư Bồ Tát cùng các thánh hiện tăng, nơi phạm giới dung thông ghét đời sen rực rỡ, nguyện làm kẻ đồng hành trên con đường giác ngộ sinh mọi loài chúng sanh, từ bỏ cõi làng nguyên theo đường giới định tuệ quay về trong tỉnh thức. Chúng con kính dâng hướng lên Bùn và chư vị Bồ Tát. Hôm nay đệ tử chúng con một lòng chí thành, đem trước ta bảo dân hương cúng dường ba nói vô thường trì tụng kinh chú, xưng tán hồng danh công đức, cầu cho thế giới hòa bình chúng sanh an lạc. Lại trong pháp duyên này chúng con hôm nay cầu siêu cho chư hương linh, lệ bình an nguyện nồng khả hằng, Thái Thị Liên, Erin Minh Kim, John Ruth Suprasid, Đạo Thị Diệu, Huỳnh Thị Kim Huệ, Trần Thị Bé Trường Đề, David Perkins pháp danh Thiền Nghiệp, Đình Thành Bích pháp danh Nhận Trực, Lễ Thị Đăng Trương Nồng Sơn, Trường Văn Kỳ, Trường Nồng Vũ cùng Hâm Hiến, Đạo Thị Tý cùng Thấn Triều, Độ Thiền Trúc, Lễ Thị Chân, Hứa Thị Thần, Quan Thị Lý pháp danh Thành Thọ, Lý Đình Huệ, Nguyễn Thanh Tổng, Phạm Đình Tường pháp pháp nhân Quảng Trang, nguyện an đi lý văn sở phân bá trồng, hoàng phúc ban trường quốc kiên giang liên, nguyện thì tiết pháp nhân diệu lạc, nguyện thì tốt pháp nhân diệu thật, nguyện văn thần bé văn lan, bé phàm phu thành, trần dần đồ phạm thị la pháp nhân diệu quế, trần dân lai pháp nhân thanh tịnh, bé thị thành pháp nhân tịnh đức, trần minh tuấn pháp nhân minh lạc, huỳnh thì nằm pháp nhân diệu lạc, Steven Zinkiewicz pháp nhân đức nhẫn, đăng văn thiện lưu kiêu thiên, nguyện tất cả chư hương nên nhượng nhờ tam bảo lượng, đồng được về đây nghe kinh siêu sanh tịnh độ. Lại nguyện cầu an cho chư Phật tử sư sanh hy, nguyện phú đồng, Trần Phạm Thái Anthony pháp danh thiện phước, Trần Kim Tính Huỳnh Thị Tiết Huệ pháp danh diệu tú, Trần Nhân Phú pháp danh Minh Hoàng, Hoàng Thị Hương Giang, Trân Hoàng Nhật Nhi, Trần Hoang Dần Khang, Vương Hải Sinh Huỳnh Thị Hòa pháp danh Từ Anh Thuận, Cao Nhung Nguyễn Thị Kim Phường pháp danh Từ Hòa, Lễ Thị Cây Tô Phùng Hiệp, Huỳnh Vị Bảo pháp danh Thanh Pháp, Nguyễn Thị Kim Phùng pháp danh Từ Hòa, David Willie, Nguyễn Thị Xuân pháp danh Diệu Nhiên, Nô Thị Thành, Trần Thị Mộng, Thái Thị Liên, Nguyễn Văn Phước, chư Phật tử thân tâm an tịnh, bình khổ tiêu trừ, thường được an lành, xa lìa khổ ách, nhượng mong ngoại đứng tự bi quán, giảng đạo tràng chứng minh gia hồn. Nam mô chứng minh sư Bồ Tát, Nam mô thầm phương thường trụ tam bảo tác đại chứng minh. Sen quy nại đại giang nô hào quang, mười phương trí tuệ vương thầm bám giới từ bi, vừa thấy dung ngang điều nữ trong nhà phiền nào, ma hương về tán dương công đức, tịnh chuyên đạo niệm vung trồng, nhân tâm kính lệ bồn pháp tăng thượng trụ trong mười phương. Nhân tâm kính lệ đơn bổn sư bổn thích ca mâu ni. nhân tâm kính lệ liền vì tổ sư qua các thời đại, thấy chúng cho đều biết nào. Kính mời đại chúng mở trang số 4. Please turn to page 4. Nam mô tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Nam mô tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. The Dharma is deep and lovely. We now have a chance to see, study, and to practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. Nam mô A Đăng Bổn Sư Bổn Thánh Ca Mâu Ni. Nam mô A Đăng Bổn Sư Bổn Thánh Ca Mâu Ni. Nam mô A Đăng Bổn Sư Bổn Thánh Ca Mâu Ni. Pháp Bổn Cao Siêu Mẫu Niệm. Cơ duyên may được thọ trì, xin nguyện đi vào biển tuệ tinh thông giáo nghĩa viên kinh tên niết bàn nhà ba la mật đa bồ tát quán tự tại khí quán chứa tâm sao ba nhà ba la mật thứ diệu pháp trí độ vọng soi thảy nơi thời đã khi một vị Bồ Tát nơi diệu pháp trí độ ba nhã ba la mật thì tâm không chướng ngại, nên không có sợ hãi xa lìa mọi vọng tưởng, xa lìa mọi điên đảo nạn nghĩa bà thuyết đối chư bổn trong ba đời diệu pháp trí độ ba nhã ba la mật nên đa vô thường giải vậy nên phải biết rằng mạng là lên chữ đại, thầm là lên chữ đại, minh là lên chữ vô thường, là lên chữ thuyết định, là chân lý bá phẩm có năng lực tiêu trừ tất cả mọi khổ nạn, cho nên tôi muốn thuyết cao thầm chữ trí độ ba nhã ba la mà nói sáng đỡ Bồ Tát liều đồng tham chữ ra ca thế phà ra ca thế phà ra sam ca thế mô ni sa phà ra ca thế phà ra sam ca thế bồ đi sa va ca thế phà ra sam ca thế bồ đi sa.
Xin đại chúng lắng nghe Kinh 8 điều giác ngộ của các bậc đại nhân. Là đệ tử Bụt thì nên hết lòng ngày cũng như đêm đọc tụng và quán niệm về 8 điều mà các bậc đại nhân đã giác ngộ. Điều thứ nhất là giác ngộ rằng cuộc đời là vô thường, chế độ chính trị nào cũng dễ sụp đổ. Những cấu tạo của 4 đại đều trống rỗng và có tác dụng gây đau khổ. Con người do tập hợp của 5 ấm mà có, lại không có thực ngã, sinh diệt, thay đổi không ngừng, hư ngụy và không có chủ quyền. Trong khi đó, tâm ta lại là một nguồn suối phát sinh điều ác, và thân ta là một nơi tích tụ của tội lỗi. Quán chiếu như trên thì dần dần thoát được cõi sinh tử. Điều thứ hai là giác ngộ rằng càng lắm ham muốn thì lại càng nhiều khổ đau, rằng bao nhiêu cực nhọc trong cõi sinh tử đều do ham muốn mà có. Trong khi đó, người ít ham muốn thì không bị hoàn cảnh sai sự, lại cảm thấy thân mình và tâm mình được thư thái. Điều thứ ba là giác ngộ rằng vì tâm ta rong ruổi chạy theo danh lợi, không bao giờ biết chán, cho nên tội lỗi ta cũng theo đó mà càng ngày càng lớn. Các bậc Bồ Tát thì khác hẳn. Họ luôn luôn nhớ nghĩ đến phép tri túc, an vui, sống đời đạm bạc, để hành đạo và xem sự nghiệp duy nhất của mình là sự thực hiện trí tuệ giác ngộ. Điều thứ tư là giác ngộ rằng thói quen lười biếng đưa đến chỗ đọa lạc. Vì vậy, con người phải chuyên cần hành đạo, phá giặc phiền não, hàng phục 4 loại ma và ra khỏi ngục tù của 5 ấm và 3 giới. Điều thứ năm là giác ngộ rằng chính vì vô minh nên mới bị giam hãm trong cõi sinh tử. Các vị Bồ Tát thường xuyên nhớ rằng phải học rộng, biết nhiều, phát triển trí tuệ và đạt được biện tài để giáo hóa cho mọi người, để cho tất cả đạt tới niềm vui lớn. Điều thứ sáu là giác ngộ rằng vì nghèo khổ cho nên người ta sinh ra nhiều oán hận và căm thù, và vì thế lại tạo thêm những nhân xấu. Các vị Bồ Tát biết thế cho nên chuyên tu phép bố thí, cõi kẻ ghét người thương như nhau, bỏ qua những điều ác mà người khác đã làm đối với mình và không đem tâm ghét bỏ những ai đã làm ác. Điều thứ bảy là giác ngộ rằng 5 thứ dục vọng gây nên tội lỗi và hoạn nạn. Người xuất gia tuy sống trong thế tục nhưng không nhiễm theo cái vui phàm tục, thường quán niệm rằng tài sản của mình chỉ là 3 chiếc áo ca sa và 1 chiếc bình bát. Tất cả đều là pháp khí, rằng trí nguyện xuất gia của mình là sống thanh bạch để hành đạo, giữ phạm hạnh cho thanh cao và đem lòng từ bi để tiếp xử với tất cả mọi người. Điều thứ 8 là giác ngộ rằng vì lửa sinh tử cháy bừng cho nên mọi loài đang chịu biết bao niềm thống khổ. Biết vậy cho nên ta phải phát tâm đại thừa, nguyện cứu tế cho tất cả mọi người, nguyện thay thế cho mọi người mà chịu khổ đau vô lượng, khiến cho tất cả chúng sanh đều đạt tới niềm vui cứu cánh. 8 điều nói trên là những điều giác ngộ của các bậc đại nhân, Bụt và Bồ Tát. Những vị này đã tinh tấn hành đạo, tu tập từ bi và trí tuệ, đã cưỡi thuyền pháp thân để được bên niết bàn. Khi trở về lại cõi sinh tử độ thoát cho chúng sanh, các vị đều dùng 8 điều giác ngộ ấy để khai mở và chỉ đường cho mọi người, khiến cho chúng sanh ai cũng giác ngộ được cái khổ của sinh tử, lìa bỏ được ngũ dục và hướng tâm vào con đường thánh. Nếu đệ tử Bụt mà thường đọc tụng 8 điều này thì mỗi khi quán niệm diệt được vô lượng tội, tiến tới giác ngộ, mau lên chánh giác, vĩnh viễn đoạn tuyệt với sinh tử, thường trú trong sự an lạc.
Discourse on the 8 realizations of the great beings. Wholeheartedly, day and night, disciples of the Awakened One should recite and meditate on the 8 realizations discovered by the great beings. The first realization is the awareness that the world is impermanent. Political regimes are subject to fall. Things composed of the 4 elements are empty. Suffering. Human beings are composed of the 5 aggregates and are without a separate self. They are always in a process of change, constantly being born and constantly dying. They are empty of self and without a separate existence. The mind is the source of all confusion, and the body, the force of all unwholesome actions. Meditating on this, you can be released from the round of birth and death. The second realization is the awareness that more desire brings more suffering. All hardships in daily life arise from greed and desire. Those with little desire and ambition are able to relax, their body and mind free from entanglement. The third realization is the awareness that the human mind is always searching outside itself and never feels fulfilled. This brings about unwholesome activity. Bodhisattvas, on the other hand, know the value of having few desires. They live simply and peacefully, so they can devote themselves to practicing the way. They regard the realization of perfect understanding to be their only career. The fourth realization is the awareness that indolence is an obstacle to practice. You must practice diligently to transform unwholesome mental states that bind you, and you must conquer the 4 kinds of Mara in order to free yourself from the prisons of the 5 aggregates in the 3 worlds. The fifth realization is the awareness that ignorance is the cause of the endless round of birth and death. Bodhisattvas always listen to and learn from others so their understanding and skillful means can develop, and so they can teach living beings and bring them great joy. The sixth realization is the awareness that poverty creates hatred and anger, which creates a vicious cycle of negative thoughts and actions. When practicing generosity, Bodhisattvas consider everyone, friends and enemies alike, to be equal. They do not condemn anyone's past wrongdoings or hate even those presently causing harm. The seventh realization is the awareness that the 5 categories of sensual desire, money, sex, fame, overeating, and oversleeping, lead to problems. Although you are in the world, try not to be caught in worldly matters. A monk, for example, has in his possession only 3 robes and 1 bowl. He lives simply in order to practice the way. His precepts keep him free of attachment to worldly things, and he treats everyone equally and with compassion. The eighth realization is awareness that the fire of birth and death is raging, causing endless suffering everywhere. Take the great vow to help all beings, to suffer with all beings, and to guide all beings to the realm of great joy. These 8 realizations are the discoveries of great beings, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who practice diligently the way of understanding and love. They have sailed the Dharmakaya boat to the shore of Nirvana and have then returned to the ordinary world, free of the 5 sensual desires, their minds and hearts directed towards the noble way. Using these 8 realizations, they help all beings recognize the suffering in the world. If disciples of the Buddha recite and meditate on these 8 realizations, they will put an end to countless misunderstandings and difficulties and progress towards enlightenment, leaving behind the world of birth and death, dwelling forever in peace.
Kính mời đại chúng mở trang số 20. Please turn to page 20. Trang số 20. Đệ tử chúng có từ vô thầy dạy bao niệm chương bởi làm mê vào sân ra từ biết bao lần nay đến chương đại vô tự giác soi được please massage your feet before standing up. In gratitude to our parents and ancestors, we bow deeply to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha in 10 directions. Đệ tử chúng con nhớ tổ tiên cha mẹ cúi đầu kính lễ tam bảo thường trụ trong 10 phương. In gratitude to our teachers and those who support us in our daily life, we bow deeply to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha in 10 directions. Đệ tử chúng con nhớ các bằng sư trưởng tín thi đàn nam, cúi đầu kính lễ tam bảo thường trụ trong 12 phương. In gratitude to all living beings, we bow deeply to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha in 10 directions. Đệ tử chúng con nhớ mọi loài chúng sanh, cúi đầu kính lễ tam bảo thường trụ trong 12 phương. Kính mời đại chúng cùng an tọa. Please be seated.
Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Kính bạch thầy, kính thưa toàn thể đại chúng. Hôm nay cũng có cơ hội để chia sẻ bằng tiếng Anh cho các bạn bè để nghe tiếng Anh. Con xin phép đại chúng trước khi mình cũng chia sẻ thì mời đại chúng mình chắp tay và niệm Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Dear respected Thầy, dear noble community, today is May 29th. In the year 2022, we're in the Trúc Lâm Monastery having our regular Sunday service. How's everyone doing today? I hope you're enjoying the late spring that's coming up, especially the many flowers are blooming from the trees. And I'm sure that many of us maybe had the chance last week to enjoy a long weekend
And some of the monastic brothers and sisters had flew to Kelowna to celebrate the Buddha's birthday over there in Okanagan Buddhist Center. And around this time, usually for the monastics, this is a time for all of us to take refuge in wherever we are. And you may have heard this term called the 3 months rains retreat, or the 3-month retreat. And it's usually specifically reserved for the monastics. Because why? Back then, in the Buddha's time, usually it would be the monsoon season. Many rain would come down, and usually the monks would have their robes when they're going for alms round. The robes would become wet, and they would step on bugs, insects, and they would accidentally kill them. And so we continue on with this tradition for the monastics to continue on to practicing 3-month rains retreat, where we make the commitment to try not to go out as much during the 3 months. If we really need to, we ask permission from the community to do the Buddhist work or go out for a certain amount of time and come back the time that we have said we will return. And so in this way, this helps us to find more time for ourselves to rest, to recharge, and to learn much more about the practice, much more about the sutras, the teachings of the Buddha. I'm sure back then we have also encouraged some of you who listened through to the many talks during the pandemic in the past 2 years. Some of us have taken the refuge to stay at home to practice more than the 3 months, but maybe 1 year of staying home retreat. And that you maybe have learned something very new. You may have learned how to cook through YouTube. You may learn how to learn about maybe organizing your clothes, your belongings. Maybe you also spend some time to rest and recharge yourselves. And so that is also a retreat for you. And not often do we have time for ourselves now, since we've started to come back to society, come back to how things were before the pandemic began. And so when we ever have time for yourself, or maybe you have 1 day, usually we use that day to do what? We may use that day to work again. We may start some new projects, but we never have time to really rest and recharge ourselves. So when you have that opportunity, when you're going to school, you have a day off, know how to use that day off wisely. Or when you don't have to work on a holiday, you can also take some time to rest, to heal yourself. Because throughout many of the days that we go interact with society, we're always being stimulated. We're always using our energy, our efforts to push ourselves. And sometimes we feel exhausted, we feel tired, we feel burned out. And maybe some of us may need more than 1 day. Some of us may need a week, maybe a few months to really heal ourselves. And so in this time right now, the monastics, we are in the 3-month rains retreat, which in Vietnamese we call An Cư. An means to dwell. Cư means to dwell in a place. Take refuge in the place that you are dwelling right now. And so right here is also a dwelling place for the monastics. Or maybe there's some who are those who are unable to stay by themselves, and so they look for another temple to take refuge, to stay and practice during those 3 months. And so coming back to this, to my morning sharing, we know that throughout this week we have heard and witnessed a lot of news, the violence that has been conducted in many parts of the world. And oftentimes when we hear this, we see this, we may be a victim of this. We develop a lot of feelings of fear, sadness, anger, frustration. And that also can cause more violence in our consciousness. Violence is never far. And it's possible to identify the seeds of violence in our everyday thoughts, our speech, and our actions. We can find these seeds in our minds, in our attitudes, and in our fears and anxieties about ourselves and in others. Thinking itself can be violent, and violent thoughts can also lead us to speak and act violently. And in this way, the violence in our mind manifests in the world. And we have seen and we have maybe conducted an act of violence in our home or somewhere in our workplace or at school. And the daily wars that occur within our thoughts and within our families have everything to do with the wars fought between people and nations throughout the world. The conviction that we may know the truth and that those who do not know the absolute truth may have become caught in their own views. For example, if we think that Buddhism is the only way to happiness, then we may be practicing a kind of violence by discriminating against and excluding other spiritual paths. When we are caught in our own views, that can lead to a lot of misunderstanding, misperceptions, and that blocks our opportunity to gain a deeper wisdom. Of course, you may be practicing Buddhism, but there are those who are practicing Christianity, Muslim, but who are also practicing the practice of Buddhism as well. And we may think that there should only be one religion, but that's not true. Many people who are practicing more than just one religion are also doing their best. You see their life. They're very happy. They're very open and free to accept and receive the insight from many other people, many other religions. If we think of violence and war as an act or events with a definite beginning or with a definite end, then if we're able to see that true nature of war, then we see that whether war breaks out or not, the seeds of war are already here. We don't have to wait until war is officially declared to recognize its presence. But we see war every day. We may think that the battlefield of opposing armies have left, and it seems like that the war has ended, but that may not be true. The war may still be there, but the fighting, even though the fighting has ended, the hatred, the fear that's still there in people's hearts, their minds, in fellow soldiers. If we look around, we will recognize that war comes with many manifestations, many faces. And we have witnessed this throughout life, through religious intolerance, through ethnic hatred, through child neglect, racial discrimination, exploitation of the world's resources. There are many forms of war, and we think that war is just a battle between one side and another. But the war can also be what I've just shared from those examples. We also know that there may be seeds of peace and understanding and love that are there. And if we're our practitioner, we want to cultivate, to grow those seeds. We don't want the seeds of war to continue to be watered, continue to be planted. But we want the seeds of peace. We all want peace. We all want happiness, not for ourselves, but for many others as well. When we hear news of people who are dying, we also feel that we want to send our prayers to them. We wish for those who we know that are affected by that. May they be well, be happy, and be at peace. We never usually wish for someone to die, to go to war. Although that may be sometimes those small criticism may come about in your family and maybe your workplace, your school. But it's not best. It's best to not to water those, to encourage that. when we recognize that violence that has taken root within us, in the way we think, speak, and act, we can wake up and live a new way. We have to make that strong determination to live mindfully, to live in peace. And in order to do that, we have to use the light of awareness to shine on the roots of violence, to shine on our own hearts and our own thoughts in order to stop the war that's happening, maybe inside yourself, and maybe in others. And at times when we hear news of what's happening in the world, the people are dying, people still fighting right now, we feel all these emotions inside of us. And because we don't want to wish that to happen upon us or anyone else. And these unfortunate events, we usually tend to go towards a prayer and an invocation to wish that those who are facing this, may they be able to overcome the war, to overcome their loss, their fellow members that passed away, to the people who are dying, who are starving right now. And oftentimes we may pray because we feel bad about that, because we feel we're fortunate enough to live in a place that there's no war, there's no violence that's happening. And sometimes we may pray without even putting our effort, our mind into the prayer. We may, maybe this morning, as we are chanting, you may read the words, you may be praying with your family members, but are you wholeheartedly praying? Are you really understanding what's being chanted, what's being read? If we only put 50% of ourselves into the prayer, then we don't know if that prayer will actually work or not. Sometimes we always expect a result from that prayer, but we never have to ask for the result. When you pray with all your heart. You put 100% in your efforts. You don't know if your prayer will work or not. That's not the main outcome. But are you able to really generate that energy of love, the energy of faith, compassion, mindfulness in yourself? When you pray, we can think about using the telephone. The telephone needs a wire, and then there has to be electricity to that wire in order for the telephone to work. The same goes with the prayer. The prayer works the same way. If our prayer doesn't have the energy of faith, doesn't have the energy of love, compassion, then it's like trying to use the telephone when there's no electricity in there. In Buddhism, we learn the teachings of impermanence, which means that everything can change. Today we may be in good health, but tomorrow we may be sick, we may be weak. Everything goes into accordance with the law, cause of law and effect. If we have the new energy, a new insight, a new faith in us every day, then we know that we are nourishing our body and our mind, our spirituality. When you sit down, when you practice walking, when you practice chanting, what are you really doing? You are unifying both your body and your mind. You bring your energy of love. You bring the energy of compassion to your loved ones, to those around the world who may be suffering, to those who have passed away. And with that practice, that energy, it opens your heart. If we know that we have a small heart inside of us, we've only allowed just a few people, then you can also slowly open that heart much more greater, much more wider to those who are being affected. And prayer can be two methods of effective praying. When you come to a monastery, to a church, to somewhere that a holy site, you see a lot of people are praying. You see them joining their palms together. They close their eyes, they recite wherever they're reciting. And you feel the energy from them. You feel that you also want to be part of that collective prayer, that collective energy. Because when you have that collective energy, you feel a lot of power inside of you. You feel you have more faith in the practice. You have more faith in yourself. The first method is to be able to establish communication between ourselves and to the one we are praying to. If today we're coming to pray for our grandmother, our grandfather, then we also establish that communication with ourselves and to our grandparents. We may not know if they're listening to us right now, but you dedicate the time every week to come, to offer food, to offer tea, to offer incense to your grandparents. In that way, that action is not only offering, but you also cultivate, you establish communication. You establish that you're continuing on for your grandparents, the tradition of offering food. Because when we and the one we are praying to, they are both interconnected. Our communication is not dependent on time or space. But when we meditate on this, the communication is realized straight away, and you are already linked to your grandparents, to your loved ones. When we know that the television station sends a signal up to the satellite, it beams back down to the television set. And a certain amount of time is necessary for the waves to be transmitted through space. But the communication of prayer lies completely outside of time and space. We don't need a satellite. You don't need to have to wait 1 or 2 days. But if you direct your mind, your attention, your heart to the person you're praying to, then you and the person who's being prayed to, you are already linked. And the second element that we need for prayer is the energy. If we have connected to a telephone wire, now we need to send that electric current to use that telephone. And same in prayer. In prayer, the electric current is love, mindfulness, and right concentration. Mindfulness is the real presence of our body and our mind. When we direct our body and mind towards an object, to the person we're praying to, then you're already establishing your concentration, your love and compassion. You may see that people light up the incense in front of the Buddha, and you may think to yourself, what are they praying to the Buddha about? And then these people may pray for their success, good health. But when we light up the incense, you see that they may need something to connect with the Buddha. And they use the incense to focus on that, so that their attention, their concentration is towards that incense, lighting up towards the Buddha. And when you respect the Buddha, you not only respect the statue that's above you, but you also respect yourself. You may think that the Buddha and you are separate, but that may not be true. It's only an image that's in front of you that helps you to remind you that you are an embodiment of the Buddha. Same go with God, with Jesus. You may also pray to many other religious leaders that you respect to. But you also contain those qualities of those religious leaders that you respect in you. we see that we have the capacity to become like the Buddha, to not only sit still for a very long time, but you also have the capacity to teach others, to help others, and to find happiness. In the tradition of the Buddhist practice, you often see us joining our palms together. It's like this, to respect each other, to pray, and to say goodbye as well. We have to look deeply to know who we are and also who the person is sitting in front of us or standing in front of us before we bow down, before we bow towards that person. And we also need to see that the relationship between you and the person you're bowing to, and that may be the Buddha, it may be a statue of a religious leader you respect, that they're not outside of you, but they're in you. You are connected with them. So don't think that the Buddha and you are separate, but you are interconnected. When you direct your mind, your energy towards the Buddha, towards your loved one, to someone around the world who needs that prayer, who needs that energy from you. A prostration based on the perception that the Buddha may be higher than us is not true. But when you bow, when you prostrate, you are practicing the quality of letting go. Sometimes we hold our ego to a very high standard. But how many times have we put ourselves down to be humble, to let go of that ego, to really be on the same level with everyone else? Not very often. So when you have the chance to see people prostrating, when you bow down, it's not just a form of respect, but it's also a practice of you of letting go of your ego, of also respecting your loved ones, your appreciation, your gratitude to those who you care to. And so don't think that the statue seems to exist outside of you. But the Buddha is not someone who exists outside of you. But the Buddha also exists in each and every one of us. So that's why when you see that when we face towards each other, we usually join our palms and we bow to one another to respect each other's Buddha nature, the capacity to become a Buddha, to become a Bodhisattva. And so today, I wanted to share about the meaning behind of the 3-month Springs retreat, as well the method of praying. Sometimes we ask for prayers, but sometimes we also have to know that we can't expect a result from that prayer. All we have to do is to really put all your effort into what you're doing, just like meditation and mindfulness. If you're really aware of what you're doing, then you know that what you do, the result of it, will be successful. If you're washing the dishes and you're not talking, then you really know that you're really into washing your dishes. If you're driving your car on the road, you're aware that there are many cars around you that you should not crash into. That's also the practice of mindfulness, the practice of meditation. So I hope that our friends who are here today and those who are listening online, I hope you also send your energy, your prayers to the ones who you love, to the people around you who you know, and to the people who are suffering around the world, who've lost their lives, and to wish them to be reborn in a better place, and to wish for those who are facing the difficulties, may they be able to overcome those difficulties. Thank you so much. So after this, for those families who have, we will be doing an ancestor offering to the side. So for those who have ancestors today, who are praying today, please make sure you come to the picture that's in front of you. And please, for those who are here, give us a hand to put away the mats and cushions. Cảm ơn đại chúng đã tham dự lễ hôm nay. Sau đây sẽ mình cúng thất. Những gia đình có ở đây thì mình đến chỗ bàn thờ để mình cúng. Và sau đó mình cũng vì nào không có cúng hôm nay cũng phụ dọn dẹp bộ đoàn và tòa